Doctors of Reddit, what's the best asking for a friend story you've heard? Wife's dad is a urologist. When we first started dating, a friend of mine wanted her to ask if any of the penis enlargement pills were legit and actually worked. She went with the asking for a friend approach and he immediately assumed she was talking about me. Next comment. I asked my doctor about A for a friend of mine. Really? Years later the doctor still asks me how I'm doing with my sobriety. I've stopped trying to convince him I really was asking for a friend. Next comment. One girl was interested in laxatives for a friend. She tried to learn everything about the dose, where what to buy, how to drink. She was brought in a week later with complete intestinal atony. She tried to lose weight so much and drank 2 or 3 tablets at a time. Next comment. I was asked the following. So if I swallow cum and flush it down with vodka, do I still get pregnant? She was in early 20s, she waited for her actual friend who broke her nose in a bar fight. Next comment. Next comment. Doc. Had a guy who just got out of jail a few days earlier came in with his GF who had signed in for an STD check. Walk in to meet them and he says casually, is it possible to get gonorrhea in your throat? At that moment I knew he had gonorrhea in his throat. Next comment. Not a doctor but pharmacist. Someone called the pharmacy one day, a young guy, I picked up. Excuse me, how much does Viagra cost? Is there anything cheaper? I have someone that needs it. I explain everything and suddenly. Will it work if I take it with alcohol? The guy began asking for someone else, at the end was for him and was asking just because he wanted his little one to work while drunk. Next comment. Do you sleep with hot male patients? Next comment. Not mine but one of the older pharmacists I work with went out to help this 20-ish girl with some med questions. She then asked him about condoms and said, if you were to do me, what condom would you use? Yeah. Next comment. My father is a doctor and he got a call once in the middle of the night from his call share doctor's patient. The man asked what to do about a bump on his friend's arm that he scratched and something came out. He mentioned it was leaking a little oil now. It was as it. He scratched a pimple. Woke the whole family up at 3 a.m. because he had to page my dad over as it. Next comment. Studies have been done about the effects of THC on glaucoma. When I worked for a glaucoma specialist we had a hippie-type person come in with their family member for a new patient eval and ask the doctor to sign paperwork okaying a medical marijuana script for the patient's glaucoma. Problem was the patient was totally fine, didn't find any signs of the disease and his eye pressure was within normal limits. And the doctor did not appreciate having someone try to trick him. Next comment. Next comment. Not a doctor. But I was an intern. I was in the OPD and this man from a different province came in and told me his friend has injected petroleum jelly in their member years ago and that now it's getting painful. Yay, he came back the next day and showed his lumpy member. Next comment. Doctors are all busy ATM. Next comment. There is one dream where in my dream, I'm Spider-Man. But I'm losing my powers. I'm climbing a wall but I keep falling. In my dream. Actually, it's not even my dream, it's a friend of mine's dream. Next comment. Another family medicine doc called an ER doc yesterday on the cell phone asking what to do when you get soap in your eyes. Choose wisely folks. Next comment. Eye doctor here, finally closed our offices to all but emergency care. Last year or so I had a staff member ask me for a friend if she got shot in the eye with cum and is now getting mild discharge, is that okay? I looked at her eye and saw discharge. Went to the cabinet, gave a bottle of antibiotic to her for her friend and then went back to my patients. Next comment. Yes, hi, this is Dr. X, I need to call in a prescription for hydroxychloroquine. Do you have any in stock? Asking for a friend. Next comment. Divorced women/cougars like to explain muscle strains as sex injuries to get a rise out of docs. Best way to deal is to stay monotone and not react. Patient describes proximal adductor muscle pain in hip flexion during recreational activity. Rated 7/10. Pain is now present during ambulation. If you don't react, they move along. Doesn't take long in the office to have seen and/or heard everything. I'm not interested that you are recently divorced, started working out, and discovered Tinder. Good on you, but it takes more to get a rise out of me. One colleague in training had a professional cuddler with a similar injury. Doc was very conservative, possibly on the sheltered side, and in front of 2 of his superiors during the case, and she was not shy. I would add she was not visually what I assume most would hope for in a professional cuddler either. That one I enjoyed, on account of him not her. Next comment. I briefly dated a doctor and she told me a few hilarious stories. Next comment. Next comment. Not a doctor, heard this one from my cousin. A guy comes in and asks if it's possible to get a girl pregnant with someone else's sperm if guy A had sex with guy B before banging C female. Asterisk wish I knew the full story. Next comment. General practitioner here. One of my non-medical friends asks me that his friend wants to know a good home remedy for an STD. I told him a tablespoon of powdered detergent mixed in 1 glass of water should work. Next thing I know he's in my kitchen stirring a glass. Next comment. Next comment. Next comment. Not a doctor, but was mistaken for one by a drunk dude at a costume party once. Okay, twice. Sent him to sober up the first time, comes back 5 minutes later with no recollection of our first conversation and asks me for painkillers, and at which dose they kill you. I gave him the number for the suicide prevention hotline on a napkin and told him that they can help with the issue. He happily staggered away and I haven't heard from him since. Either he got help, or he didn't, but either way, it was a weird experience. Next comment. So not me, but a person I saw. So the patient, sick as heck, staggers to the doctor and at the absolute loudest possible voice she said, "Are you single?" Betty wants to know. Betty was her childhood pet cow. The doctor calmly says, "I'm sorry, but I am not interested." We were all busting out laughing and I barely could breathe. I later asked the doctor how he kept a straight face. He said, laughing on the inside, it's a lot like crying on the inside. That is now the hospital I frequently visit. Next comment. I'm directly related to a nurse. More than once I've approached her with a question for a friend that actually was for a friend. Next comment. Middle-aged women ordering a shitload of comfort food at our KFC drive-thru and then adding, sometimes multiple times, that it's not just for her. Next comment. When I was in med school, one of my classmates, who was always a bit unfocused, asked a psychiatry professor during a lecture if there was any research about cannabis and other drugs going on at our university, in case that group needed another PhD student. This classmate didn't graduate, as far as I know. I met him a while ago, and he looked like a stereotypical hippie. Looked past me, not at me, and didn't recognize me even though we were in the same case group a bunch of times. Next comment. Not necessarily asking for a friend, but my mom worked for a doctor in my hometown. He was a foreigner. I needed to see him one day and he begins telling me that not him, but his foreign French friends think Americans are stupid, lazy, fat, etc. etc. But he was saying it with a lot of umph behind it, like he was disgusted. Next comment. My cousin is always telling this story to my sister when she's drunk. The girl who came in asking if her friend washes his condoms after sex and reuses them, would they still be able to work? After a week the same girl comes in to ask my cousin to tell her boyfriend that the kid was his. Apparently this friend she was asking about was her boyfriend's close friend who she cheated with, and he got her pregnant after reusing condoms more than a few times to save money. Won't be saving money for condoms anymore, that's for sure. Next comment. Next comment. Next comment. One of my besties called me late at night after his birthday party. He said someone who was staying the night wanted to have sex with his GF, they were drunk and a little uncoordinated, and somehow the frenulum, the little string thingy at the tip of the penis, ripped, and it won't stop bleeding. I gave his friend some general advice on stopping the bleeding and recommended a trip to the ER. The next day he asked me if I had any recommendations for urologists for his friend, because he needs minor surgery on his pee-pee. I told him to cut the bullshit, and in response he sent me a pic of his injured penis. So, long story short, his wang got a remodeling and he is still with this vagina dentata sporting woman. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed.